Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. If you have never been here before, thanks for stopping by. If you have been here before, I thank you for watching. As always, you guys are awesome. I want to do a little video today that I did when this channel very first started, and I've been doing this channel for almost 5 years, so it was a long time ago that I did this video. I thought it was very important at the time. I probably had 12 subscribers, so now that I've built up a little bit of an audience, I want to do it again. Okay, so the reason I want to redo this video is because I think it's important to kind of give a little bit of history or background as to who I am as a photographer and who I am as a person you're listening to on this channel. Because let's face it, there are a lot of great YouTube channels out there. If you want to learn photography, there's great channels to learn from, but there's also a lot of channels that just are junk. I'll be honest with you guys, kind of those junk channels, as popular as they are kind of why I started this channel, because I kind of got convicted when I was complaining about all these people that were out there trying to teach photography that clearly didn't know what they were talking about. And then I, realized you never started a channel. So I started this channel because of the cruddy channels that are out there. So my reasoning for making this channel is just to simply tell you who I am, what I've done, the experience that I have, the learning, the education, the things that I have when it comes to photography, so that I can give myself at least a little bit of credibility and hopefully instill some trust in you guys saying, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. So maybe I'll call this my YouTube resume, or maybe my photographic testimony, just to kind of give you guys an idea of who I am, what I've done over the years in my career, to give myself a little bit of credibility. And I'm going to go all the way back to when I was a teenager. That is when the whole desire and the photography bug kind of hit me. I took a class or two in junior high school, I think. We learned to develop some black and white film. We learned to make some black and white prints. And I can tell you, as a film shooter and learning in the film days, one of the magic moments that kind of grabs you as a photographer that says, this is what I want to do, was when you put that first print into the developer tray, you start rocking it, and you watch your image come up. That was junior high school for me, and so from there on out, I wanted to be a photographer, took a lot of photographs, took classes in high school, and always wanted to be a photographer. Now, I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't know how I was going to do it, so out of high school, I took a couple years off, worked full-time, and finally decided I need to go to school. I ended up going to school in Dayton, Ohio, to a school called the Ohio Institute of Photography, where I studied for 2 years and got my associate's degree in commercial photography. Now, I had grown up in Denver, Colorado, and moved to Ohio to go to school, but when I graduated, I thought I might as well go back to Denver. That's where I'm from, loved that city, and I'll start my career there. So I went back to Denver with my commercial photography degree, but I didn't have a lot of equipment. I didn't have a lot of experience. So one of the things that a lot of people did, and I thought this was a great way to start, is I became a freelance assistant. What I did is I called every single photographer in the phone book, said, hey, do you ever hire people for the day? And a lot of people did. They didn't have a full-time assistant, but they would hire somebody just for half a day or a day based on their needs. And so I would work with these different photographers for a day, maybe 2 days, and just to help them out. I would carry light stands and move lights and, whatever schlepping type job they needed me to do. But it was a great way to not only learn photography better, but to learn the industry. Now, of course, as I was freelance assisting, I was building up equipment and I was doing more of my own shooting. And so I was freelance shooting as well, and getting clients here and there, and intermixing the assisting with the shooting and just doing whatever work I could possibly do. And then at one point in the assisting gig, I ended up working with one photographer on kind of a regular basis, and he ended up hiring me full-time. So for a year, I was full-time assisting for a guy named Dennis Lane. And to the best of my knowledge, Dennis is still out there. His website is out there. Dennis was the best photographer I ever worked with. Frustrated me a little bit because we would go on these photo shoots and he never really knew exactly what he was going to do until we got there. But he was great at lighting. He could light anything from small products to big products to people. And we did a lot of different things when I worked in his studio. And he just was a very inspirational figure in my little career to do excellent work and to just shoot for a very high standard. Now, for the year that I worked with Dennis, his biggest client was a department store called Joslin's. We did all the product stuff from pots and pans to jewelry to socks. We shot all their newspaper ads. And Joslin's ended up going in-house. So Dennis lost that freelance account, and I knew that when he lost that account, he was probably not going to need me on a full-time basis. So I knocked on Joslin's door and ended up getting a job in-house with them. There were 2 photographers. We ran that studio as well as their darkroom. I worked there for about 2.5 years. It was a great little job. I loved it. It was 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. It was a neat little studio, and I really enjoyed working in that environment and producing all the advertising photography for their newspaper and direct mailing advertising. Now, as they say, all good things come to an end, which is not always necessarily true. It's kind of just one thing ends and a new thing happens. Joslin's ended up getting bought out by another department store that was in a different state. And when that company took over Joslin's, they laid off everybody in the advertising department. We all lost our jobs, and I ended up having to start freelancing. Now, before I left, one of the girls in the PR department there at Joslin's, who was in charge of putting together a bridal show that the department store always did, asked me, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm probably going to start freelancing." She said, "We'll give you a free table at our bridal show if you want to do it." Now, I had done a wedding or two, not a lot, but I thought, sure, why not? And my wife and I put together a table, put together some images, and we started selling ourselves as wedding photographers. At the time, I thought weddings, well, it'd be nice to get some work. I wasn't really excited about being a wedding photographer, but the more I did weddings, the more I enjoyed them. And in the mid-90s, which is when all this was taking place, wedding photojournalism became a thing, and we started shooting black and white and 35 millimeter and being more journalistic with our wedding approach, which made it a whole lot more fun for me. And I ended up really enjoying weddings. Amy, my wife, and I used to do about 50 weddings a year. We did that for 7 years, maybe, something like that. We did it full time, and things were going really, really well. Now, in the midst of shooting weddings, we kind of had this leading, and I won't go into this whole big story, we kind of had this leading to move to Ohio. And as I said, I had gone to school in Ohio. I had some connections there. The thinking kind of behind it was we were starting a family. We wanted to raise kids in a small town, but be close to a big city that we could continue to do the wedding work that we were doing. And so after a couple years of kicking it around, we packed everything up, moved to Ohio, and we lived in a little town outside of Columbus, thinking we're going to just continue to do the wedding industry stuff and live in a small town. Now, it didn't end up working exactly like I thought it was going to work, because when we were heading out there, I called the school that I went to get my degree in photography and said, "Hey, do you ever hire anybody part-time to do instructing work?" And they hired me as a part-time instructor, which was great. I really thought it would just kind of tide me over as we built the business out there. But within 6 months of teaching, I ended up being a full-time instructor. Like I said, Ohio didn't work out exactly like I thought it was going to work out, but looking back on it, it was far better than I could have ever planned, because when I was there, the world switched over from film to digital. So I was at the school teaching and learning as the whole industry switched over to digital. I'm not sure how I would have learned digital as well as I did had I not been in that learning environment. When I started teaching at that school, for 2 years, the students probably did 1 or 2 digital assignments. When I left 7 years later, the only film classes you were taking were elective classes. Everything had gone digital. So I was there at the perfect time to learn digital photography, but I also was incredibly fortunate to share the office with another instructor, which happened to be the Photoshop instructor. He happened to be the Photoshop king in the school. His name is Mark Sela, great friend to this very day. We still keep in contact. Loved sharing an office with him, and if there's one thing I miss about Ohio, it was my time in the office with Mark. But I owe everything I know, pretty much Photoshop related, to what I learned from Mark. Now, like I said, I was teaching for 7 years, and in that time, my parents moved to Asheville, North Carolina. We started visiting them, loved the area, it's very beautiful, and we started looking for jobs in that area. We knew that Dayton, Ohio, and the economy was starting to slip, that the school was starting to slip a little bit because the number of students was drastically going down. So I started looking for jobs near my parents, and the closest job I found was in Spartanburg, South Carolina, working for a company called Smile Makers, where I was the in-house photographer and did all their product work. I did all their fashion work. I wouldn't call it fashion necessarily as much as models. We photographed a lot of adults and a lot of kids. Smile Makers is a company that sells giveaway toys and toothbrushes and stuff to doctors and dentists. Now, after 13 years, I was laid off from Smile Makers, so my second time of being laid off. Now, in this case, COVID had kind of hit the industry, had hit Smile Makers kind of hard, and from what I was told, they were just simply reducing staff. They had to make some staff cuts, and I was the guy that got let go. So for the second time in my career, I've been laid off, and just like when I was laid off when Jocelyn's let us all go, this has really turned out to be a blessing in disguise again, because I'm back to freelancing. I can make my own little schedule. I've got more time for this channel, and the work that I'm doing is pretty exciting. So these are kind of the things I'm doing today. I've been throwing up pictures this whole video to kind of show you what I was doing all along, but I'm working with some great clients now, doing a lot of exciting things. I do a couple of weddings here and there, which is always fun. And we're just kind of making our own schedule again, which is great, and I've enjoyed it. Now, I tell you all that and give you all that history, show you all those photographs and history of work that I've done, not to show that I'm some kind of expert, because I'm certainly not an expert in everything. I just want to kind of show you who I am and what I do, so that when you watch this channel, I can have a little bit of credibility to explain I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the things I'm talking about. And I promise you, I will never come across as an expert in an area that I'm not an expert on. I thought it was kind of important, especially now that the channel has a lot more viewers than it did when I first talked about this. But I would love to hear your comments. If you got any questions, let me know. I always love hearing from you guys as well. I got a wedding tomorrow, so I got to go charge batteries. I got to get packed up, get all ready, and of course we'll do a video again next week. But thanks for watching. As always, if you haven't subscribed, think about doing that. We're getting kind of knocking on the door of 2,000, which is exciting to say the least. You guys have a great weekend, and I will see you in the next video.